A chilling warning has been issued by the head of NATO. The world is closer to a major global conflict than it has been in decades. This isn't just political rhetoric, it's a grave assessment from someone with a front-row seat to rising global tensions. The fear is that a series of crises could spiral out of control, pulling major powers into direct confrontation. Russia and China are forging a partnership, declaring a friendship with no limits, and coordinating their actions to challenge the West. This alliance is a strategic challenge that could fundamentally alter global security. The signs are visible now. The war in Ukraine grinds on and tensions around Taiwan are escalating. These flashpoints, though distant, are increasingly linked. What happens in one region could trigger aggression in the other. A single spark could ignite a much larger fire. The NATO chief's warning is a wake-up call. The era of relative peace since the Cold War may be ending. Alliances are being tested, and new opposing blocs are forming. The message is clear: strengthen defenses, reinforce alliances, and engage in clear-eyed diplomacy. The world stands at a crossroads. Vigilance and preparation are more crucial than ever. Imagine a nightmare scenario, a two-front war that stretches the US and its allies to the breaking point. Russia escalates in Europe, perhaps attacking a NATO member in the Baltics, triggering Article 5 and drawing the West into direct conflict. Simultaneously, China seizes the moment to blockade and invade Taiwan, forcing the US to fight on two fronts. American military power would be divided, naval fleets split between the Atlantic and Pacific, air squadrons stretched thin. The logistical challenge would be immense, supplying troops and equipment across vast distances. This is the strategic trap. By coordinating, Russia and China hope to overwhelm the Western alliance. Europe would focus on Russia, leaving the US to face China largely alone in the Pacific. The goal: break the back of the American-led alliance system. A simultaneous crisis could create chaos, potentially collapsing Western influence. This is the scenario that keeps strategists awake at night. The nightmare expands as Iran and North Korea seize the chaos to advance their agendas. Iran could close the Strait of Hormuz, choking off a huge portion of the world's oil supply and triggering a global economic crisis. The US and its allies would be forced to divert resources to reopen shipping lanes, opening a third front focused on economic warfare. Meanwhile, North Korea, with its massive army and nuclear arsenal, could send troops to aid Russia or provoke new crises in Asia. North Korean involvement would give Russia fresh manpower and signal a new level of cooperation among America's adversaries. The sight of North Korean soldiers in Europe would mark the conflict as truly global. This web of alliances, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, makes the prospect of World War terrifyingly plausible. Each player adds a new layer of complexity and danger to the unfolding crisis. Experts warn that such a conflict would unfold in rapid, escalating phases. First, Russia and China increase military cooperation and use cyber attacks to weaken the West. Then, a trigger: Russia attacks a Baltic state while China blockades Taiwan, plunging the world into crisis. NATO and the US would face immense pressure to respond on both fronts. As fighting intensifies in Europe and the Pacific, Iran could mine the Strait of Hormuz, and North Korea might provoke new crises in Asia. The conflict would quickly globalize. Supply chains collapse, communication is disrupted, and the risk of nuclear escalation grows. Regional wars would blur into a single global struggle. The world could be plunged into chaos almost overnight. Once started, the cascade of events would be nearly impossible to stop. The specter of nuclear weapons would loom larger than ever. This is the timeline that haunts world leaders. The stakes: nothing less than the future of the world order. The consequences of global war would be catastrophic. Millions of lives lost, cities destroyed, and entire populations displaced. The psychological trauma would scar generations. Economically, the world would plunge into a depression, trade would halt, supply chains shatter, and markets collapse. Scarcity of food and energy would spark unrest even in nations far from the fighting. International institutions could collapse, replaced by a brutal reality of might over right. The world could fracture into hostile blocs, ushering in a new era of suspicion and conflict. Democratic values might retreat, replaced by authoritarianism. The fear is not just of war, but of the unraveling of the modern world. The hope that by understanding the horror of this future, leaders will find the wisdom to pull back from the brink. The warning is clear: act now, before it's too late.